Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on British politics. Great Britain, with its specific political culture, occupies a certain special position among European countries. On the one hand, it is under the direct cultural influence of America like no other country, which explains, among other things, why so many people follow vocarati values and why cancel culture is such a widespread phenomenon at universities there. And on the other hand, electoral law continues to favor a two-party system, with the exception of pronounced regional parties, which means that even more than elsewhere, the parties are quite heterogeneous alliances of very different forces, which often fight each other more than the official political opponent. And this is especially true for the Tories. Added to this is the fact that in Great Britain, an uprising by what is commonly understood to be a populist protest movement was actually spectacularly successful by forcing the country to leave the EU, which the large majority of the political class across party lines actually rejected at the time. But now, May 4th, there will be local elections in England. And local elections are the biggest test of political opinion in England ahead of the next general election. More than 8,000 seats are up for grabs this time. The seats up for grabs this year are roughly the same as those that were up for grabs in May 2019. That was a bad period for the Conservatives, with the party engulfed in a civil war over Brexit. But Labour was in a tough place too, with serious splits in the party over Jeremy Corbyn's leadership then. And this matters because the number of seats lost and won this year will be in relation to a result which was pretty bad for the two biggest parties. The Conservatives don't have as far to fall. Labour are starting from a fairly low point and will want to make big gains. In England, local elections are held to elect members to local government bodies such as councils or boroughs, which are responsible for providing services to local communities. These elections are typically held every 4 years, although some local authorities may have different election cycles. The electoral system used in local elections in England is the first-past-the-post system, which means that the candidate with the most votes in a given constituency is elected. The country is divided into electoral wards, each of which elects one or more councillors to the local council. In some cases, there may be additional elections held to fill vacancies that arise between the regularly scheduled elections. These are known as by-elections and follow the same process as the regular elections. The electoral process is overseen by the local authority, which is responsible for setting the election timetable, registering candidates, and ensuring that the election is conducted fairly and transparently. Voters are required to be registered in advance of the election and will receive a polling card indicating the location of their polling station. On the day of the election, voters go to their designated polling station and cast their vote by marking a cross next to the name of the candidate they wish to support. The votes are then counted, and the candidate with the most votes is elected to the council. And this time, the Conservatives are braced for a bad set of results, as I said. Cabinet ministers have all been told to make 3 campaign visits to target areas. But senior figures in the party say they are likely to lose hundreds of seats, perhaps even 1,000. And there will be a bit of expectation management going on there, because if you're expecting a really bad result, the result that is just, normal bad, it doesn't feel like a big blow there. But the Tories are preparing for losses in places like Surrey, Hertfordshire, Oxfordshire and beyond. And insiders working on the campaign accept many voters are unhappy with the party and the last 3 prime ministers. And the voters will want to make that clear at the election. But will that also be a verdict on Rishi Sunak? In part it has to be, because this is the first big electoral test as Conservative leader. But Tories are also arguing behind the scenes that the party is doing better on key issues like the economy, immigration and leadership. But still, the Conservatives are preparing for a blow. But they'll just argue it's not a fatal one. Labour thinks it has a good chance of forming the next government in Westminster, and it will want to show it has momentum. If you look at all the polls, they should have. Labour strategists think the party's councillor tally will have to go up by hundreds to show it's on track. The big test for Labour, is at least what insiders say, will be whether they are making enough progress in areas where they need to pick up seats at a general election. So they will, on that day, they will be watching a lot of areas like Swindon, Derby, Plymouth, Darlington, Thanet, and Stoke-on-Trent. But there is some expectation management going on with Labour too, because Labour say they don't expect the result in May to mirror the national opinion polls, and those polls see them far ahead of the Tories at the moment. Because some key parts of the UK are not voting. London and Wales, where Labour does well, and Scotland, where it hopes to do well. And the Liberal Democrats are firmly expecting gains too. They are targeting Conservative voters unhappy with the government at Westminster. And of course, campaigners report finding former Tory members so disillusioned they are prepared to deliver leaflets for the Liberals. And the Greens have been picking up councillors in local elections in recent years as well, and they are confident of keeping that trend going even further. And of course, there are thousands of independent candidates standing too, and they are likely to form a significant part of the electoral map. They are often focused on specific issues in their personal area. So it will be hard to make a complete comparison or to predict what's going to happen in a general election. But if the Conservatives lose big and if Labour gains well, it gives us a hint what might be able to happen at the general election. But we will see on May 4th. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.